Nuclear energy is the energy stored in the nucleus of an atom. Releasing this energy from the atom is what gives way to usable nuclear energy. The main way this is done is through nuclear fission. Nuclear power plants use nuclear fission to split apart atoms to form smaller atoms, which in turn releases energy and generates heat that typically turns a turbine. Solar energy, on the other hand, harnesses power from the sun. We can take radiation in the form of light from the sun and convert it into electricity. This is typically done through photovoltaic or PV cells, which are made of semiconductive materials like silicon. When sunlight is absorbed by PV cells, photons of light transfer that energy to electrons, which in turn creates energy in the form of an electric current as the electrons flow through the material. As such, solar energy is classified as a renewable energy source since it is a source of energy that can theoretically regenerate and replenish itself indefinitely. While some argue that nuclear energy should also be classified as renewable, most agree that it is, more accurately, a sustainable energy source. This means that while nuclear power may not be seen as infinite, the rate that it is consumed is insignificant compared to the amount of the supply. It's like the kale of energy sources. There is only a finite amount of the stuff, but who would ever eat so much of it that the world would run out?
The Solar Energy Technologies Office, or SETO, as we often refer to ourselves, supports innovation across the solar energy spectrum to reach lower costs of electricity and to support the transition to a decarbonized economy. We release several funding opportunities each year, and these funding opportunities come with topic areas that are designed to address critical spaces where we really want to accelerate innovation. SETO has a long history of supporting innovation in solar energy technologies, and these innovations, coupled with other advancements in the industry, have enabled solar costs to drop dramatically over the past decade, 70 to 80%. This is making solar electricity one of the cheapest forms, and in many areas, the country, the cheapest form of new electricity generation today. It's critical that we continue to innovate and drive costs down further. Doing so will enable our electricity supply to be more affordable, and it will also accelerate solar deployment. The Biden administration has set a goal of 100% clean electricity supply by 2035. Solar is going to have a huge role to play in getting to that goal. Solar could provide as much as 40% of electricity in a clean grid. That's 10 times more than it's providing today. With the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, we see the industry poised for dramatic growth, both in deployment as well as in manufacturing, supporting good paying jobs and rapid growth toward our goal of having a clean electricity grid.
The water we use today has been around for a long, long time. That is because water can recycle itself in the water cycle, which is also called the hydrologic cycle. Let's start this cycle with the evaporation of water from the surface of the ocean. As this moist air is lifted, it cools and water vapor condenses. It may form clouds. In fact, clouds are made up of tiny water droplets and ice crystals that are so small they can float in the air. This moisture in the atmosphere may be transported around the globe until it returns to the surface as precipitation. Precipitation may take the form of rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Now, once this water reaches the ground, one or two processes may occur. Some of the water may evaporate back into the atmosphere, or the water may penetrate the surface and become groundwater. The groundwater may take several different paths. The groundwater may seep in its way into the oceans, river, or streams. Or it may go into an aquifer, which is a body of saturated rock through which water can easily move. Or it may be released back into the atmosphere through transpiration. Transpiration occurs when leaves from trees and other vegetation give off water vapor through pores in their leaves. Some water on the Earth's surface is not absorbed by plants or become groundwater, and it becomes surface runoff. This runoff may empty into lakes, rivers, and streams, and then is carried back to the ocean, where the cycle may begin.
Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. Its diameter currently measures just over 3,000 miles, about the size of the continental United States. Like Earth, Mercury is a terrestrial planet with three main layers: a core, a mantle, and a crust. Only Mercury's crust has no tectonic plates. Also, its iron core is enormous by comparison, making up 85% of its radius, while Earth's inner and outer core account for just 55%. Because of the core's exceptional size, it's had a surprising influence on Mercury's overall size by causing it to shrink. The hot iron core has slowly cooled and contracted over the planet's 4.5 billion years. In doing so, it pulled Mercury's surface inward and has caused the planet to shrink radially by more than 4 miles. This shrinking planet is also the planet closest to the Sun, orbiting our solar system's star at an average distance of roughly 36 million miles. Such proximity affects Mercury's atmosphere, or rather, the lack of one. It only has a very thin exosphere, which is traditionally the outermost layer of a planet's atmosphere. This exosphere is made of oxygen, sodium, hydrogen, helium, and potassium, all whipped up from the planet's surface by solar winds. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. Its diameter currently measures just over 3,000 miles, about the size of the continental United States.
El Niño is not a storm, but rather a weather phenomenon in the Pacific Ocean. During an El Niño, the surface water temperature warms up, leading to complex weather patterns. South American fishermen in the 19th century, describing warmer waters during Christmas time, coined the name El Niño, Spanish for the Blessed Child. Nowadays, when sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean rise 0.5 degrees Celsius over their historic average for 3 consecutive months, and once atmospheric conditions and rainfall patterns shift accordingly, scientists officially declare an El Niño. An El Niño event takes place about every 2 to 7 years. Normal east to west trade winds over the Pacific weaken, and warm water that normally travels westward is now moving toward the east. Moisture then rises into the air, and the effects of El Niño are felt throughout the Americas. In the ocean, warm water pushes colder water downward, blocking the important upwelling of nutrient-rich waters from the bottom. This causes some marine life to migrate to colder waters. Animals that normally feed on this sea life suffer, and fisheries throughout Central and South America suffer too.